we're actually going to have a question and answer session for you guys. Okay, so Jessica, if you're ready to begin.
And I'm actually going to pass it back to Tabitha to get the activity started.
All right, guys, and if you didn't see, I just dropped in the chat if you want to be counted as here because you're trying to complete all the sessions to get that intern spotlight on our social media. Make sure you drop your name in the chat, especially if maybe your phone is just like logged in as iPhone or a phone number and I can't see who you are. If you can't chat with us because you're just on a cell phone, before we end the call today, make sure, but at the end of the session, I'll pause for a few minutes for names. So we wanted to get y'all started with something just a little fun today, and I'll tell you how it's gonna go. Bree and Jessica are both kind of coaches and have a lot of information and a lot of experience with online and meetings. And so they're gonna be our experts. So what I'm gonna ask you to do right now is we're gonna play the do's and the don'ts game. So take one sheet of that paper and write a big D-O. It's a do. And take the other sheet of paper and write the word don't. And write them in big capital letters so that we can all see. Good job. Bree, show us what you got. So everybody write do on one page and don't on the other. And I'm gonna read off some scenarios of virtual meetings. And you get to guess, based on your best judgment, whether you think that is a do, I should do that in a virtual meeting, or I should not, it's a don't. So these are the do's and the don'ts of the virtual meetings. And then our experts, Jessica and Bree, are gonna give us a little bit of an explanation of why that may be a do or a don't. Don't worry about getting it wrong. Sometimes it's not 100% either way. We're all learning. This is a new day for all of us to learn about virtual meetings and being online, but this is critically important to you being successful. And so we just want to share a couple of things that we've learned along the way and things that our experts know with you. So if everybody's ready, everybody hold up a do. Hold up your do. Okay. Awesome. So when I read a scenario, I'll give everybody like a second or two to think about it, and then you got to hold it up. And once we're up, then one of our experts is going to kind of weigh in on whether that's a do or a don't and why that is the case. Also, I am recording this session because we had someone on our group that had to work tonight and really wanted to hear it. So if you don't want something that you're doing recorded, don't do it. Thanks. All right, here we go. First up. Do's and don'ts. The first scenario is log into the meeting at the exact start time. Is that a do or a don't? Oh, I'm seeing some don'ts. Seeing some don'ts. Bree or Jessica, you want to weigh in? It's a don't. You're right, guys.
Don't. And so as I'm sure all of you've experienced, a lot of times with these waiting rooms, you can't actually get into the room until the meeting starts. But giving yourself those 5 to 10 minutes before the meeting starts to log in lets you just double check that your headphones are working, that you can hear yourself, and also that your background is set up appropriately and that you're letting the world see the side of you that you want to see. It also ensures you've got the right login and right password as well.
Yes, reiterate what Jessica said. Yes, you want to make sure that this gives you some time, just some cushion room to make sure that you're working out all those technical difficulties and technical kinks that pop up. Your software could be trying to update at that moment. So you want to make sure that you give yourself enough time to work those things out.
So number 2, sit in front of a window to make sure that you have good lighting. Is that a do or a don't? Sit in front of a window. Gabby, you gonna guess? We don't know, we're not sure. All right, Bree, which one is it?
Don't. It is, I'm sorry, do. I'm looking at my wrong answer key. So you want to make sure that you sit near a window like I am today. I'm sitting near a window that allows me to have that good lighting. what you want to avoid is making sure you're not sitting behind a window, because that will make your image appear darker on the screen.
Right. Yep. So scenario number 3, mute your microphone when you're not speaking. Is that a do or a don't? Y'all are all really good at this already. All right,
Yes.
Jessica?
That is an absolute do. Please mute yourself if you're not speaking. It keeps all the extra noise out for those of you who are fending off children or spouses or partners or dogs or pets. It keeps the rest of the world that's going on aside from meeting quiet and away out of the meeting. But be sure to unmute yourself when you have something to share or contribute to the meeting.
Okay, check your background before sharing your video. Check your background before sharing your video. Oh, y'all are getting good at this. Bree, why might you want to check your background? Is that a do or a don't?
That is an absolute do. You want to make sure that you check your background and that you're using a neutral background like I am myself. You want to make sure that you don't have any cluttered walls, or that the tables that you may be sitting in front of are clear of clutter.
And this is also an opportunity to determine how much of your personal life you really want to share with the rest of the group. So whether that's having a bed in your background or a messy living room or whatever the background is, make sure that's really the image that you want to share with the group. Also avoid having any doors that could surprise you by being opened during the meeting.
All right. Number 5, this is a tricky one. Turn off your video once the meeting starts. Do you think that you should do that, or you should not turn off your video? I see some don'ts. I see some do's. Jessica, I'm gonna let you speak to this one because I feel like it could go either way.
So this one, Tabitha, I say is a do and a don't. Ideally, leave your video on so that you can participate in the video and the meeting. Everyone can see you. But also, it can be exhausting to have your camera on all day long, especially if you're in meetings all day long. Or like myself, I have a 3-year-old child that I'm managing while I'm working from home, and so there's just parts of my life as I step away to manage her, or I have my 80-pound dog on my lap. It might be an opportunity to turn the video off between moments in the meeting.
Bree, anything to add to that?
No, Jessica said it perfectly.
I'll add something. I know y'all have all seen the woman go into the bathroom while she's on the Zoom call. That went viral earlier during the start of the pandemic, and she thought she had her screen off and she didn't, and it was awful. There's been a couple of instances like that I know have hit the internet, and that's just something that you want to be like super cautious about. I know that what we're trying to say here is it's not okay to be a participant in a meeting, and as soon as everybody starts talking, you just, because that feels like you've checked out. But if you need to do something that not anyone else needs to see, then you certainly can turn off your screen, especially if it's a marathon meeting and, you know, things are not and always in your control. So just be aware of those viral moments and make sure you're not one of them.
And
Okay.
Rika brought up a very valid point. You don't want to turn your camera on and off because that could be distracting to other participants. So kind of set the tone up front. Whatever you're going to do for the entirety of the meeting, make sure you do that in advance, if that's camera on or camera off.
That's such a good point. Such a good point. Eat a snack or cook food with your camera on. Do or don't? See a lot of don'ts. Yeah. Bree, would you want to eat a snack on your call?
No, unless you are participating in the cooking class, which I'm a member of YP and we're having one tonight, so I hate that I'm missing it. But unless you're a part of a cooking class or a virtual dining experience, please avoid eating while in a meeting. It's okay to take a few sips of water like I am if you are the speaker, or if you're a participant, it won't be as distracting as eating a cheeseburger in front of your camera.
Let's do a few more of these. Sit or lay on your bed or recliner. Is that a do or a don't? I see some do's. I see some don'ts. Jessica, I'll let you take this one.
I'm going to argue this one's a don't. Most of the virtual meetings that you have are professional meetings. So it may not be the most professional setting. And I will say candidly, I was in a training recently where a woman was laying on her bed the entire meeting. And it was just really distracting. So again, it comes back to what is the professional image that you want to share with your group?
Taking a phone call or texting during the meeting. I think we're all guilty of this at some point or another. Lots of don'ts. Bree, what about texting?
Don't. You shouldn't. It will appear that you are disengaged, and it will be distracting for other members who are engaged in the meeting if they see, this, or if your audio is on and they're here and they hear your phone nearby vibrating. Those things are all distracting to everyone else that is engaging in the meeting.
So this one can be a little tricky sometimes. Let me say this one. How about sit outside? Is that a do or a don't? What do y'all think? Do or don't? Let me see some choices. All right, Jessica, should we be sitting outside during our virtual meetings?
I would say that's a do or a don't. As long as there's not distracting sounds, cars going by or, birds or other, distractions, sit outside, enjoy the sunshine. Just make sure that the light's not too bright or too dark as you're meeting.
Yeah. All right, so what about if you're the host of a meeting? Should you wait until the waiting room is full and then let everyone in at the same time, or wait or let people in the meeting as they're joining? Is that a do or a don't? Is it a do or a don't to let everyone in at the same time? If you're hosting the meeting, you're gonna let everybody in. Do you do it at the same time or do it one at a time? All right, so Jessica, are we supposed to let everyone in the meeting at the same time?
Well, I'd ask you, Tabitha, what did you do as we got started today?
I let you in as you come. That's how I do it. And I try to welcome you also, because I feel like if someone was in person with me and they walked into the room, I wouldn't wait until everybody else got to the meeting to speak to them. And I wouldn't wait until everyone else got to the meeting to acknowledge that they arrived. So I try to treat it the same way.
And I'll say one of the things that you do really well, Tabitha, is that and I've been in a couple of virtual meetings with you, is that you welcome people one by one and, hey, Jessica, hey, Cedrica, just to let us know that you do see that we're in. And it's just a welcoming way to start the meeting.
All right, we've got two more. Next to last, be aware of body language. Is that a do or a don't? Do you think people can see your body language on a virtual meeting? Lots of do's. Bree, you want to talk about body language?
Yes, that is an absolute do. You want to make sure, in a lot of in-person interactions, we're wearing masks, so we can't see, all of the facial expressions and body language that you may be using with your face. So when you're in a webinar setting like this, try to make it as close to the pre-pandemic interaction that we had, and you want to make sure that you're standing up straight and that you're looking directly into the camera, and that you're not fidgeting with your hands or your hair while you're speaking.
Perfect. All right, last one. This one I feel like it's gonna be a little tricky. Walk around during a meeting. Walking around, is that a do or a don't? All right, Jessica, I'm going to show my age, but it feels like Blair Witch Project to me when people walk around during the meeting. So tell us what it is. It's a do or don't.
Who all has seen Blair Witch Project? Hands up. Yes. Yeah, it feels like a scary movie when somebody's walking around with their phone. It's just distracting. It's also a little, I don't know, it makes me feel a little nauseous watching someone walk around. The only time I've seen it be successful is someone giving a tour of an office space or a new home, for a virtual meeting. But otherwise, yeah, find your spot, sit down, check your background, and be prepared to hang out there the whole meeting.
All right. Anybody have any questions? Oops, see, I have a monster coming to my room. All right. Anybody have any questions about that? I know there was a couple of questions about the lighting, and what we were trying to say is don't sit in front of the window. So if the windows are behind you, you often look like you're in like some sort of Secret Service interview, right? Where you're trying to be blacked out to protect your identity. So we want to be able to see you. We want the light to come in from either the front of you or from the side of you. But if it's behind you and you are looking too shadowy, that's usually not a great way to have a conversation. People can't see your face. They can't see your facial features. So I did see that in the chat. Anybody else have anything they want to add?
What are some of the things that maybe we missed? If you want to put yourself in the chat, or if you want to speak up, unmute yourself, something you think we've missed or want to share. Jordan, I see dress code. Gabby, I'm going to dress code. Tabitha, do you mind if I take this one? With the virtual meetings, admittedly, most of the day, I spend my entire day in virtual meetings with clients, and most days I'm professionally dressed from the waist up, but at least I have on like jogger pants or something that if I stand up, it's not going to be embarrassing. So just keep in mind that you may have to stand up during a meeting, and depending on the company you're working for, they may have a relaxed attire. You probably don't have to wear a suit every day, but you still are representing yourself as a professional. Yeah. And ladies, go ahead.
I was going to say, while we're on the subject of dress code, I know some of these questions may have seemed silly or like, oh, that's an easy question, but the same rule apply as they apply to dress codes. If you've ever read a really detailed dress code, some of the things are like, okay, it may be in the dress code, shower daily or wear shoes. There's a reason that's in the dress code. It's because somebody came to work without shoes on one day. And so even though these questions seem really silly or like very easy, we've all seen somebody walk around. We've all seen somebody eating a Whopper. We've all seen somebody flipping their camera on and off during a meeting. So there are apparently some people who don't know these rules. So keep that in mind.
Perfect. Thank y'all so much. Appreciate y'all for playing that little warm-up game tonight before we get into our panel. We're so lucky to have two awesome professionals with us tonight. I hope y'all are going to learn something from them. I know I certainly will. And I'm going to, as we transition, did y'all like that? Like thumbs up, thumbs down? Do y'all want to do stuff like that? Everybody good? Okay, awesome. We'll try to come up with some interactive, fun things that you can do on our following sessions. But let me go ahead and turn it back over to Cindrika. She's going to introduce our panel tonight, and they're going to, these ladies have been doing virtual meetings, so they know all the things. And so we're so lucky to have them tonight, and just want to take about 20-25 minutes with them, and please feel like you can interact. Unmute yourself. This is a good time to practice this, guys. You're going to be in meetings and in classes with people, and you still have to have active participation. So if there's an idea that comes in your mind, a question that comes in your mind, throw it in the chat, or also just maybe you want to take your mute off and throw your hand up, and we'll call on you, or if it's an appropriate time just to ask it out loud while we're asking for questions, please do so. All right, Cindrika, thank you.
Awesome. Earlier in the session, I introduced both Kelly and Lauren, but right now I'm actually going to give both of them a little time to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit more about their work. And how they manage being in a virtual environment. So I'm going to start with Kelly.
Kelly, before you start, if y'all will click on the speaker view, I think for this session, it will help you to see the person who's talking instead of everyone, because we want to make sure you can see Kelly and Lauren when they're answering their questions. So if everyone wants to change the top right-hand corner, you can click on the little boxes, and it'll change it from gallery view to speaker view. Sorry for that interruption, Kelly. Go ahead.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's an honor to be here. I appreciate the invite. So I'm Kelly Kervin. I'm with Anthem. I have been with the company for 22 years. So I started when I was very young. So I started with claims, customer service. I've always been in operations. I'm a director for service operations. I have responsibility for claims, customer service, E&B, enrollment and billing, ID cards, pretty much a lot that's here in our Georgia office in Midland. So, and also with HR, with our internal, with hiring. So been with the company a long time, seen a lot. Most of my career has been in the office, but I've spent a lot of time virtual as well. So it's an honor to be here today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kelly. Now, Lauren, introduce yourself to the group and tell them a lot about your work.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for the opportunity. Kelly, it's good to see you. We usually see each other in the building. Hi, Kelly. So I'm giving you
Hello.
virtual hugs through the computer. I am Lauren Chambers. I work on the Amira Group side for the company, which is the Medicaid product. And I am in marketing, which of course, marketing is all warm, fuzzy, touch and feel. So you can imagine now that we are completely out of the feel, how that feels for me, which is different. But in marketing, you have to be very flexible. And so it's been an easy transition to do that. And so I've been with the company now for 7 years and have had the pleasure of doing a lot of creativity and a lot of fun things for the central region of Georgia. I cover 33 counties in the state. And so I get to do fun activities and events and keeping things very lively and of course protecting the company brand at all times while supporting the business of the Medicaid product for our members.
Awesome. So I'm going to jump right into the questions. And the first question is really talking about the differences between a virtual environment and a traditional environment. And I can say that I have a 14-year-old daughter who usually studies ballet during the summer. And this year she's doing it virtually. And there are some differences that she notices. She doesn't have as much space and she can't ask questions like she normally asks them. So she's had to kind of shift the way she approaches that. So Kelly, my question for you, what are the major differences between working virtually and then working in a traditional office space?
First thing that comes to mind is when I think about the roles, the major frontline roles in Anthem is our customer service and our claims roles. So the difference is really being able to have a more flexible schedule. So our associates are able to get up. They don't have to worry about really the drive in, depending on where they're located, because we employ Alabama, Columbus. So if you live in Salem, you've saved yourself a 45-minute drive. So having that flexibility, and for our claim associates, especially when working in the building, you can only work when we're available, and that would limit them to an 8 to 10 hour day. So it's really been able to give everyone so much more flexibility. And another thing is really they have thought that our communication has gotten better. And that was something that was really eye-opening for us, is we were like, our communication has gotten better because we spend more time over, we use Microsoft Teams and also Skype, so we're constantly able to communicate. So that was really another good thing. Being in a traditional office, the flexibility wasn't as good, and also they were not able to have as much time off. They were not able to go to appointments. Now they're able to have less driving time for appointments too, depending on where their doctor's offices are.
Okay, awesome. Do you have any advice for someone who may be beginning their career and they are put into a remote or virtual setting?
Oh, absolutely. So if you are starting your career and you are a new hire and you're coming into an environment that is totally remote, you want to think about, how am I going to succeed here? And by this point, you've already went through the job interview phase. and you've already gotten the job. So if you're here, you're new, you want to make sure that you're very attentive. And all the ideas that we talked about, you want to employ those right away. And not only that, but you want to really stay engaged. And it's important not to get distracted if you're not if you're not given an assignment consistently. So with training, we're always able to engage. We have trainers. You are given assignments. The trainers are there with you. We're able to still do one-on-ones, even though they're virtually. You're able to learn just like you're in a classroom setting, but actually one of the benefits of virtual training versus in the building training that we have found is you're not cramped in a classroom setting. 8 weeks is a long time to be with 20 people in a room. Virtually, you're in your own space, you're learning, and you're able to interact with your teammates, but you're not sitting back to back, if that makes sense.
Awesome. My next question is actually for Lauren. And while I wouldn't necessarily consider Lauren's role pre-pandemic to be remote, she did work out in the field, which means that she was disconnected from the office. She wasn't necessarily at home, but she also wasn't in the office. So staying connected is still very important. So Lauren, how do you manage staying connected to your team and staying connected to your clients when you aren't able to reach them physically?
Thank you for that question. For my role, it definitely is a very hands-on, in the field, relationship building role when you think of marketing and the product. No, I do not sell anything, but our brand is noticed when we're out in the community. And so now that we are in the new world, I have to stay engaged by email, truthfully, making phone calls, taking the time. We have a best practice that works is we send an e-blast out to our community partners, and my database has over 1,000 community partners, and really having that weekly engagement conversation. I've made it interactive where I'm not just talking about what EMEA Group's doing. I'm talking about giving tips from the CDC of how do we interact and how do we do best practices with washing our hands and wearing masks. And then my community partners that have things going on throughout the 33 counties I service, I share that with them. And so it is so, if you would, impersonable compared to our style of doing events. But I try to tailor it where I'm connecting, saying something well as if I want you to be safe, and really just making it about the community partners and that we're here. One of our taglines, we say EMEA Group is here. And that's just letting our community partners know, even in the midst of this, we're here. Another best practice that we've been doing that I try is that I pick a partner each week, 5 to 6 partners, and we send lunch or we send patty cakes, which is a local bakery here. So we're supporting local business, and we have cookies, and we actually just have her create cookies of the business brand of whoever we've selected to make it personal and warm and fuzzy. Or we've been sending masks and gloves and cleaning products to community partners. And so we've been doing this since March. So that gives them a reminder that, again, EMEA Group is here. And so engaging in that capacity to stay connected. As for our team, we are relying on Microsoft Team a lot. But you know what I've realized? Picking up the phone and kind of going back to something that's old school, I have been writing little cards, greeting cards to my team and saying, I'm just thinking about you and we're in this together. And you'll be surprised how many people send a message and say, you know what, this really came right on time, because a lot of people are overwhelmed. This is an adjustment. People want to go back to what we were in, and that may not be the answer. And so it's really just taking those little nuggets and giving it that extra little sweet spot so that everyone feels that they are still in this together, if you would.
Awesome. I'm going to stay with Lauren and ask the next question. If you guys don't know Lauren, Lauren is super engaged in the community. As you heard her say, she has a 33 county territory, but Lauren also has a family at home. She has a husband and a 4-year-old. How old is Ellie? 4. She has a 4-year-old. So how do you manage your work-life balance?
So in the midst of this pandemic, we kept our regular schedule. And so my entire household gets up at 6 a.m. as if we are leaving going to work. So my husband works from home. You got to think about it. School was now home. Everything was home. So we get up literally every day, 6 a.m., everyone in shower. My daughter, I didn't change her routine of her clothes. Her clothes are out for the entire week. She's still in that same routine, but so is my husband and I. And we get fully dressed, makeup on. My husband laughs and says, if people could see that you're fully dressed from head to toe. Now, I may have on like funny looking socks, but other than that, I'm dressed. And we carry on with our day. We have breakfast, and immediately I have to be downstairs. My husband has his office space. I have my office space, and my daughter has her education learning space. And so it's interesting. It's like we're all programmed. Everyone goes to their space. Well, now, because I told them that, hey, I'm going to be doing something after 6 o'clock, that's why my house is quiet. But we've unplugged and kind of all made a pact that at 5, we unplug, and my daughter knows it. And we all cut the laptops off, we disconnect, we go outside, we go and play in the garden. And so we intentionally create a cutoff button, which for me, I will be honest, this was something I was very nervous about because I like the separate of my work life is here and this is my home life. So we had to create that space. And so after 5 o'clock, there is no work. There's nothing I'm doing connected to anything related to work. And my husband is the same way. And my daughter is too. So we intentionally carve that time for each other. And so I think you have to protect your peace, whatever it is that you like. If it's video games, if it's talking on your phone, if it's TikToking, be intentional to say, okay, I'm cutting this off and now I'm going to unplug and do something that I want to do and do that.
Awesome. Kelly, I'm going to go back to you and really kind of, I want to get into some of your HR background and experience. So when you're in the hiring process, what does that look like for somebody in a virtual environment?
So when you talk about hiring and in an environment that's virtual now, we're very fortunate that we work with a company that allows us to interview virtually. So it's really taken our phone interviews to a whole nother layer. So it gets really interesting. And at the end of the day, what we're really looking for still is we're looking for the right talent to do the jobs. Virtually, you're going to be missing some of the nonverbal clues that could be from the waist down. So you've really got to be focused in on what's going on from here up. And you're really going to have to dig into the interviews, have the right questions. And sometimes people are nervous on camera. You've heard the expression, some people are camera shy. So being virtual and doing that interview, they may not do a good a job as they would in a sit down meeting. And nothing replaces a sit down meeting. It's more personal. You sit down, you shake hands, you're right there. You can engage, you can see the body language, you can, you hear it more. People tend to be less nervous in person once you get to talking. Some people can overcome a camera, some can't. But like I said, at the end of the day, we're really looking for the right talent. And you've got to be experienced in that interviewing to ask those right questions to see past that. So it's really important for others on the other end to ensure that they have all the right things built out to be prepared and ready for that interview.
Awesome. Thank you for that information, Kelly. Now, Lauren, I'm going to ask you a question, but I'm going to tell you guys a story first. Lauren is always in the community doing great community events. And there's always food and music and fun. And I was on a Zoom call with Lauren a few weeks ago, and she had a DJ on the call. I'm like, okay, this girl has a whole DJ. So tell me about how Amerigroup approaches virtual working, because that was something I never saw before.
So I would say in marketing, particularly the Georgia Health Plan, we like to be over the top and take it to another level. And so I can only speak for me. I don't know. Kelly may love the Zoom meetings. I'm zoomed out. I am Zoom. I am Googled out. I am just tapped out of it. And so when I thought about a roundtable discussion with community partners, I said, what can bring an engagement piece that will make it fun and everyone will enjoy themselves? And we tested it out. I said, with this radio personality, can we just see how this works? And he's like, okay, now you're gonna have to make sure everyone's mute. And so we added a component of adding a DJ. So literally, if you would come to an Amira Group event, more than likely you would see our huge mobile unit that is huge. And so it has games, and it has inflatables, and it has a popcorn machine, and it has lights. It has all this cool stuff to let you know that, again, Amira Group is here for the community engagement. And so we said, you know what, we're just going to do it from a virtual perspective. And that's where, for one, I think proper planning is the best thing to do, or you will have poor outcome. And so with the community partners that I knew were going to be at the table, I wanted their information in advance. With Zoom platform, believe it or not, Zoom can do a lot of great things. And so in the chat box, we made sure that we highlighted those community partners that had information to share to our audience base. We had music, so when they came in from the waiting room, they were immediately greeted with a whole jam session. And they're like, wait a minute, what's going on? And it's making sure everyone's alert and you know, like, you're here. And then from there, we got into the business and interacted and had an opportunity for our audience to hear several voices, our plan president, our senior leadership, and other partners that work with us. And we gave money away. Everybody likes money. And so one thing about Amira Group is that we like to plant seeds into the community of those that are doing great work. And so that was something that was fun and innovative. So it's okay to be creative. Don't be afraid. I always say the big picture, step outside the box, sometimes kick it over, and know that if you're trying to engage and interact, of course, if it's appropriate, and if, even with the music selection, we were very diverse and very intentional that we met everyone. Clean, appropriate music, but music that would get people moving and going, because we wanted you to feel like this was a totally different Zoom meeting. So be aware of your audience, know what you're trying to captivate, be intentional and creative, and proper planning to make sure that your outcome is going to be very much not just a production, but it hits your marks that you want everyone to remember when you're doing something from a virtual perspective.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that, Lauren. And Kelly, I have one last question for you. Oh.
Can you hear me? So is it Elena or Alana had a question in the chat she wanted to ask regarding like interpersonal relationships in the workplace, and that's certainly not changed since we've gone virtually. Alana, do you want to ask your question?
People offer in the workforce or internships or even in general. So that's kind of like my question. Don't want to like come off as being rude or just questioning their way of doing things. So kind of what are some tactics or ways we can, or I can handle that situation?
I will say, oh, I'm sorry. Is it okay if I answer the question?
Absolutely.
Okay. I will say first is a best rule of thumb that one of my mentors shared with me is always study the culture. Every place has a culture. I know for the Amira Group world, our culture looks a lot different from other companies if you're comparing it to an Aflac or a TSYS. And I say that it's important that you find that out because it will tell you in a sense how to interact and engage. Amira Group Georgia is a place that is very much a very flexible company that's very open for everyone to have a seat at the table, which is not always the look for a company. And so when I say that, I have had a leader that is over 50 and who is a minority, but there's also next to her someone who is 27 and working on their master's who is a director. And so when you look at her melting pot of her leadership team, everyone was different and they brought something to the table that made them that unique. So after you study the culture, I would encourage you to be very much, I call that self-awareness, kind of a test for yourself. One, know what your biases are. And that's that part of that D&I perspective, that the only way that you can be welcoming certain conversations is that you have to be very real with yourself to know, are there any biases, or is there anything that you feel very uncomfortable with? Is there something that you're not ready to address? And what are you great at? And once you assess that from an individual, then know that and not let anyone take you off that block. And then from there, decide on how and what do you want to bring to the table that you've been invited to. So for example, you said you were the youngest in the room, but there was a purpose for you being at the table. And so continue to keep your mind on what the purpose was and how do you fulfill that purpose. Yes, I get that you're the youngest one at the table, but you've been brought to the table for a reason. You can either take the time and utilize your time at the table, or you'll never be invited back to the table. And so I say at that moment, that's where you take the time to show why you should be at the table, and you can do that without being rude. And at the same time, welcome conversations to show that you are very mature and you're open to show that you can work with others who don't always think like you, but the outcome can be the same.
Wonderful answer. Wonderful answer.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Ms. Chambers.
I have one last question for Kelly, and then I'm going to open up for a couple questions from the group. Kelly, a lot of our group today, they are still students, and they will be trying to start that career very soon. What are some tips that you can give for them that they can do now as students that will help them along their way?
Okay. So especially when you're getting ready to look for that job, you really want to know what it takes. Different fields have different application requirements. So you want to know what those fields are and what you're interested in. Does it require a resume, a cover letter? What kind of samples does your job require? A writing sample, a portfolio? You're really going to want to research that and know for sure what it is. That's really important, because a lot of companies today, they may go through vendors. And the first part of that is, if your application can't pass the simple requirements through that vendor, you may never ever get to a hiring manager. So you want to make sure that you cover all those and perfect your application materials. Always have your resume, everything reviewed. After you've polished it, you've looked over it time and time again, you're so close to that you can't see what needs to be picked apart. Get someone that's a better editor than you and say, hey, I need you to tear my resume apart, my writing sample, whatever it is that's required by your field, get them to look at that. That's going to perfect, hey, the recruiters, HR, they're looking at this. Okay, I've passed step 1, step 2. Let me get through. Because you've got to be able to get in, to be able to present yourself, to be able to be heard. Another really important piece of that is having a network and activating your network. So you want to tell everyone you know what type of job you're looking for. So your hairdresser, your friend, your neighbor, they may not be that consulting job you're looking for, but they may know someone that is. So you've got to have that strong network and be able to talk to people. They can say, hey, I know Elena, she's looking for a business consultant job. Oh, well, I have an open position. Do you have a resume? And that's how those relationships and those networks get built. So it's so important to be able to build those. You can
Wonderful.
also
Go ahead, Kelly.
No, and you can also do that with family members as well.
Wonderful. Gabby, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. So I was just wondering, so like this applies for virtual and in person, like the hiring process. If as an incoming employee, someone being interviewed, if you have an opportunity to ask an employer a question, what is a good question to ask so they know that you're interested in the job, but it also doesn't sound like fabricated?
That's a great question, Gabby. And one of the important things, and I'll piggyback off of what Lauren talked about, is knowing the culture, even before you're hired, and knowing the company, and being able to ask, what is a typical day like? That's a great question. Where do you see the company in the next 5 years?
I love the question about the company culture, because it's a saying that I learned when I was getting my master's degree, is that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And that's how important organizational culture is. A company can have the best strategy in the world, but if their culture is toxic, it will be very hard for them to achieve their goals if they don't address their issues with corporate culture. Do we have any other questions from the group? Okay, if we have no, oh, did somebody unmute for a question?
Bree or Jessica, is there anything that just came at y'all when y'all were listening to Kelly and Lauren that you wanted to piggyback on or add to? We've got about another minute and a half before we need to get to our last section of the night, but just wanted to open it up for the other guests to add anything they thought was important.
I will reiterate what Lauren said about learning the culture, and as well as what Cindrika said and what Kelly said, building that network. It doesn't necessarily have to be someone who's already employed at Anthem, but it could be your hairdresser, people that you don't necessarily think about. They have a lot of connections. So building that network and learning that culture. I think those are two great takeaways that the intern should have.
And just going back to the virtual meetings, as we roll through the next several months, I know all of you will sit in a space like this over and over again. Prior to the pandemic, I was in a classroom. I'm a leadership development trainer, and I'm used to being able to read the room and see when someone has a question or anticipate when something hasn't landed or when someone has something to share. And so this virtual space becomes really hard to pick up those social cues. And so I encourage each of you as you sit in these meetings to remember that it's not necessarily always obvious to everyone in the room if you have a question or you have something to share, which is why the chat window becomes so important. But also to keep in mind that as you're presenting, it may be hard to gauge if what you said has landed with those in the room. And so to be patient as we all work and transition into this new space together.
Awesome.
Well, I did want to thank both Lauren and Kelly for their engagement and bringing their expertise to the group. Thank you so much for joining us today. I know that your feedback and your answers help solve a lot of problems for our interns today.
Thanks, guys. Yay, good job. So I want to just wrap us up today and give you all a couple of updates. Thanks again to everybody for being on the call. You're doing something that I hope will add to your resume and your LinkedIn and all the things to help you get those jobs down the line. I did get a really good recommendation from Gabby, and she said that it might be, if you have a LinkedIn or if you haven't started that yet, you might want to. And if you want to connect with the speakers that were on the call, it's always good to start building that network now and expanding it every time you get a chance. And I know Kelly and Lauren would be willing to have that, especially Bree and Jessica as well, just to reach out if you have a question or something specific, especially if it's in their field. I know they would be welcome to that. So I encourage you, if you don't have a LinkedIn, now's the time to start that process, your online portfolio. when I graduated college back in a while ago now, we had a paper portfolio that I literally carried around in a 3-ring binder with me to get jobs and show my experience. You have to create that online tool for yourself. Things like getting a headshot made of yourself, not a selfie. Getting someone to take your picture and it being, you know, not look how, you know, not a casual photo, but more of a professional image. All of these things are going to be more critical for you now with the pandemic and all of the working from home. I asked Kelly a question earlier, how many people were working virtually prior to COVID-19? And she said 30%. And right now they're at 99% of people working virtually. That is a huge increase. And it's a trend we're going to continue to see, even as things open back up, more and more people are working remotely. So just making sure you've got your LinkedIn, your online presence looking great, your social media looking great, your headshot, and then just how you appear when you're on the screen in those interviews. Making sure you've got, you know, some of the things we played in the do's and don'ts game. Don't have your kitty cat in your lap, and you know, make sure the lighting's good, and make sure you log in early. Just these little things we're all learning. We want to take something. Everybody can take something and hopefully you know, do something with something they learned tonight. Thursday night. This week we have 2 sessions. Thursday night, it is going to be so much fun. If you miss Thursday night, I'm telling you, you're going to miss out, because these are going to be young professionals, all age 21 to 40. They're going to come on and tell you their horror stories of first jobs and how badly they screwed them up and how they made it work in the long run. These are all very successful people. I'll give you just a little teaser. I wanted a job in public relations, and I sent my resume to every agency in Atlanta, Georgia, asking for a job in pubic relations. So I've rebounded from those tragic accidents. And so we're going to share some of our success stories and how we are and where we are today and where we started and first jobs and horror stories, but also really inspiring stories. And hopefully you'll be able to take some of those and see yourself maybe 5-10 years down the road. So we'll be a separate Zoom link for the Thursday night session. This Zoom link they use tonight only works for Tuesday nights. So it'll be a separate Zoom link, same time, 6 p.m. on Thursday. And I just look forward to seeing y'all then. And if there is any questions, please email me or Gabby during the week. Also, start reviewing amazingcolumbusga.com. We're going to have a little trivia on our graduation night session to give out some more fun prizes. So start kind of perusing amazingcolumbusga.com now. Get yourself familiar with that website. Find out some information about Columbus. Even people that are local and here their whole lives can learn something. I know I have. So we'll look forward to seeing you on the 9th at 6 o'clock for our Networking with Young Professionals event. They're going to tell you all their great stories, and then start looking at the website and work on your LinkedIn in the meantime. Anybody else have anything? All right, it's 7 o'clock on the dot. See you guys on Thursday. Thank you again to our speakers.
Thank you.